votes.
11:30, we're calling it right now.
Good?
And I call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Here.
Dr. Fike?
Here.
Mrs. O'Rear? Here. Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Raymond? Mrs. Rhodes? Here. Mrs. Heather Smith? Here. Mrs. Kristen Smith? Here. Mrs. Williams?
Here.
For the record, Mrs. Raymond did indicate she was not going to be present.
Just wanted to announce that we were in executive session prior to this meeting for personnel matters. Citizens comment?
Yes, I have a Julie Cook. Hold on, Julie. Okay, Julie, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Julie Cook. I live at 802 Loucks Avenue in Scottsdale. We actually own and pay school taxes on 4 properties within the district. My concern tonight in moving forward is the district's COVID plan and mask requirements for the upcoming school year, both in school and in sports. I'd like to know when this plan will be made public. Like when we get to know what is going to be required for the upcoming school year. Is it possible that parents are asked for their opinion on the subjects? Because parents, we are the voice of our children, and we should be given the choice whether to mask our child or not. Are parents allowed to attend any upcoming health and safety committee meetings so that we have some input on these decisions? My family feels strongly on these subjects, and we need to know the district's plan so we can decide if Southmoreland is still the right fit for us. So hopefully we can get some answers soon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have any other
I do.
citizens comments?
Jan Kiefer.
Jan Kiefer, 628 Homestead Avenue. I'd like to talk about the health plan, or the lack of the health plan that was on the agenda, or should have been on the agenda, or was going to be on the agenda. I don't think we do have any committees for the citizens to comment with. I've been trying to do that for a year. If you go back through the records, I've asked for meetings, and on this last health plan that is connected with the federal money, it says specifically you have to have public health input. No one's called me. I've called you. There's been no public input that I can point to. So keep up the good camouflage, guys. On the agenda item of the removing this live streaming of the board meetings, I'm not sure why you're doing that. If it's not the money, what is it? But I'd like to make a few points on that. Again, it allows for the public to add corrective comment in a timely fashion when it can still work. Before the meeting's over, someone sees something that's horribly gone wrong, an oversight, they can comment and it can be fixed, and otherwise they can watch it on the recording and it's too late. It's an institution that is growing. Sometimes it's really very popular. You have to consider those who aren't able to come in here who want to participate. You have to consider those that are on the road that can't participate. Oh, you did. For you guys, it's okay. But for the public who can't get in here, it's a different story. So there's a second-class citizen situation there. And I really don't know why it is that you're not doing that, but you're going to consider doing it. I think it's a slap in the face of public participation, which is very near and dear to me. I just wonder if students coming into class 10, 15, 20 minutes late every day would work like you guys come in 10, 15, 20 minutes late every day. What kind of thing? And I don't know if that's on the agenda. And So what happened to the health plan, and where are we going? Where's the public input? When am I going to be able to take more than 30 seconds to describe what's going on with the masks? And most importantly is what's going on with the vaccinations. You know, I've been spending 20, 25 hours a week on the vaccination issue, almost exclusively the vaccination issue, and not only last COVID deal, but for years. Of course, not that much time. You know, my numbers right now say we've killed more people with vaccinations than we killed in Vietnam. If someone wants to challenge me with that, set the date, set the time, and set the format. And then lastly, we've still not seen anything on the website acknowledging that there's a snafu, let's call it something friendly about the election. So a lot of people are still out there. You know, you guys known it for months, and the public does not know it. Why can't you put a posting on your website? Is that too expensive? Does that take too much time? Because, you know, they still don't know it. If they aren't reading the Tribune Review and they voted, they think they voted in an election that was not. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Mr. Pieper, are there any other citizens' comments?
No.
Minutes of May 3rd, May 13th, and May 20th, 2021 board meetings.
The board is asked to consider the approval of the minutes of the May 3rd, 2021, May 13th, 2021, and May 20th, 2021 board meetings.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second. Discussion? Roll call?
You can do a voice one.
I'm sorry, voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? General Fund Board Summary Report as of May 2021.
The board is asked to approve the May 2021 general fund check listing.
Need a motion?
So moved.
I need a second. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Cox, I'm sorry. Could you skip one?
General Fund? No.
It's not the check summary. Didn't Mr. Master just say check summary?
General Fund Board Summary Report as of May 2021. And it's in Board Docs room.
Yeah, he did say check summary.
Yeah.
It is, yep, sorry.
Sorry, I just got confused.
Yep, you're right.
So the board is asked to approve the May 2021 Board Summary Report.
So-
Are you okay with that motion?
Yes, I'm fine.
I need a second. Discussion?
I do have a question. So if you look at page 12, it says percentage of the expenditures used is 81.17%. I'm trying to wrap my brain around it. That number, the total expenditures, includes taking 800-some thousand from the fund balance, is that right?
Did you say page 12?
Yes.
Well,
I was looking at the total percentage of all expenditures.
Well, no, remember, no money has come out of the fund balance.
Right. But I didn't know if
Yeah.
that number that's not included in there?
Well, what you're looking at is actual expenditures.
Okay.
Actual expenditures compared to the budgeted expenditures. And through the end of May, we've used 81%. So that does not include anything to do with fund balance.
Okay.
Fund balance changes after you close your fiscal year. You close the difference between revenues
Right.
and expenditures to your fund balance. So if there's a positive surplus, your fund balance increases. If there's a deficit, your fund balance would decrease. So this does not include taking any money out of fund balance.
Okay, so if we've used 81% of our budget for expenditures,
Yes.
it looks like we have June and July left. Do you think we'll be under?
Well, right now, I am very firm on the fact that we're going to have a break-even year. So, yeah, there is a possibility that we could have a positive surplus. Now, as of last year at the same point, we had used 82%. So, we're right there in the same ballpark as we were last year at the end of May.
So I have a question, Mr. Marnell. When we say we've spent 81.17%, we did just settle the SEA contract, and none of that has come out of this yet, correct?
Well, that's correct. That is correct.
So can you tell us that on revenues, we've collected, where are we at on the revenues? 82.43?
Yes.
Is there anything that would bump that number up closer to a 100% or?
Well, we still have to reflect, and you'll see that when you do your summary report for June, all the revenues that are received in the month of June. There is a big subsidy that came in on June 1st, and that's your last year-end basic education funding subsidy. And then during the month, you have retirement subsidy came in yesterday. And of course, we have 5 days to pay the retirement board, not only that subsidy, but more than that. We get about 60% back of what we owe. We also have the last special education subsidy. You have your final pupil transportation subsidies. You have the continuing flow of federal subsidies like Title I and II and IV. So you're not looking at June, you're looking at May. So as those get booked, when you have your June summary report that you'll see in the month of July, you'll see that number go up.
So going back to the expenditures, if we're about at the same percentage used, last year we had a surplus.
We did have a surplus last year, yes.
So if we're at the same percentage, does that indicate that we might have that same surplus or no?
It's very difficult to compare the two fiscal years because they're so unusual with what has happened in the last 15 months. It's very possible. We might have a positive surplus, but I'm very firm that we're gonna at least break even, which I think is a pretty good turnaround from what was forecasted a year ago at this time.
Step increases weren't budgeted though, right?
No, but there are expenditure categories that are coming under budget that will help cover that.
But more
And of
to-
course, we're not paying them the full step increase. Remember,
Half year.
you agreed half, and that will start to be paid with tomorrow's payroll, June 18th. And then, of course, those teachers that are not paid out tomorrow, because they have the option to be paid out, and your retirees choose to be paid out. For the bulk of the staff, the majority, their salaries will continue through the month of July and August because they earned them. And then that'll be booked against expenditures for June 30th because we have to do what's called an accrued salaries and accrued benefits. In other words, that's the amount of money that you still owe to your teachers and other employees that are on a less than a 12-month contract and then are not paid out. So, but your teachers are the bulk of that. So.
And our retiring teachers, their payout for their sick days or vacation days.
That happens in the month of July.
Okay, so that happens in the next fiscal year.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, that's budgeted for the next fiscal year, correct.
thank you. Are there any other questions?
Was it ever broken even before?
Well, it's nearly impossible to actually break even. You either have a surplus or you have a deficit. To actually plan a budget so that you perfectly break even, I've never seen it. But I like ending up on the positive side, the surplus side.
Sure, right.
Is there any other discussion? A roll call?
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Fund accounting check summary listing.
Board is asked to approve the May 2021 fund accounting check summary listing.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call?
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mrs. O'Rear?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 2 no, 1 absent.
Monthly board treasurer's report.
Board is asked to approve the April 2021 treasurer's report.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call?
Mrs. O'Rear?
Pass.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
Confidential contract for Berkheimer.
Board is asked to appoint Pam Mondoff, Business Manager/Transportation Director, and Joanne Lane, Secretary to the Business Manager/Accounts Payable Secretary, as its authorized representative to make request upon and receive any and all tax information and records from Berkheimer relative to the collection of taxes for Southmoreland School District, and to have their positions added to the form resolution below, which is incorporated herein.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Superintendent report.
In lieu of, I do have one additional item at the end, but would it be, ask the board's permission, Mr. Botonic, Mr. Marnell, and I met with Jamie Doyle and Zach Willard of PFM Financial Advisors today, and Mr. Cliff Pastel. And Mr. Willard has graciously volunteered to do a presentation to the board concerning a possibility of refinancing bonds. So if it would be okay, I do have Mr. Willard on Zoom.
Yes.
But we're going to have to do the same as we did last week. Hello, Mr. Willard.
Hello, I'm here.
How are you doing this evening, sir?
Good.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to turn you around and put you near a microphone, so if you could, so everyone can hear what's going on.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, sir.
All right, hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Good evening.
I'm not sure I could really hear you.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. They
Okay,
can hear.
good. Okay, great. So my name is Zach Williard from PFM. I haven't been in front of the board. It's almost been a little less than a year and a half since we were there to talk about the refinancing of the 2019 bonds, or I'm sorry, the 2012 and 2012A bonds that we did back in kind of December of 2019. And so recently it came to our attention that you might need some funds for projects for roof replacement, which sound like they range anywhere from kind of a $300,000 up to, almost $700,000. And I think that's for discussion on the agenda tonight. So what we did was we talked with your administration, your solicitor, and we put together some numbers to review tonight, which talk about borrowing, for that potential project. But it also talks about refinancing the bonds that we just did, almost, a year and a half ago, because interest rates, believe it or not, are even significantly lower than they were at that time. So I think you all have a handout in front of you, and we're going to walk through that. If at any time you have questions, feel free to jump in. Happy to answer them. We'll kind of walk through it, and then at the end, we can have another kind of Q&A session as well. So if you flip to the very first page, it's page numbered 1 in the bottom right-hand corner. There's page numbers. You can see an interest rate chart. It's got 3 different charts on it. But if you look at the one in the middle, that kind of goes back to the early 90s. And you can see we're on the far right-hand side. The lowest point in interest rate history was made last August. Okay, so we're not quite at the lowest point ever. But as you can see, we're just, slightly off that mark. Okay, so that's kind of what creates this potential to refinance your debt again. And, it's also a good time if you have projects. It is a good time to finance them because you can get extremely low interest rates, for the project. Okay, so that's kind of a quick market update. If you go to the next page, which is page number 2 at the bottom, we just tried to lay out some simple bullet points so that if you go back and read this, you kind of remember what we were talking about. But so under Roman numeral 1A, you can see, we laid out the project somewhere between $350,000 and $760,000 for a roof, okay? And you also have your existing 2020 and 2020A notes, which is in item B, and you do have the potential to refinance those. When we did the competitive bid process for that refinancing, we made sure that the loans were prepayable at any time, so it gave us the opportunity to do this, just in case rates did go lower, and sure enough, they did. And what we're going to show you is kind of a scenario where you marry the refinancing savings with the potential borrowing. And what it's going to show you is you can actually borrow the money and have no impact to your debt service budget. So you can kind of do your project, and we'll fit in the new borrowing in conjunction with the refinancing savings, so there's really no impact. And we'll show you some numbers that show that. And in item D there, it says, based on current rate environment and other bids that we've received kind of this week and last week, we expect savings between the 2 series somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. So, that's a good amount of money. It's not, a ton of money when you're talking about a $10 million borrowing. But again, we're refinancing debt that has an interest rate. If you look there under Roman numeral 2, the 2020 note has an interest rate of a 239 fixed, and the 2020A note has a 2.228 or 2.23 fixed interest rate. Okay, so again, those are already very low, but believe it or not, you can do quite a bit better than that. Okay, so that's a summary of the debt. That's what we're going to show you. For the next steps, let's come back to that in a second, and let's go to see some numbers here. Real quickly on page number 3, this page might look familiar for those of you who were on the board 2 years ago when we did this. But so this is the summary of your existing debt. Okay, if you do nothing, these are the payments that you make. Now on the top half, where it says on the blue banner, debt service requirements, columns 1 through 6, those are your gross debt service payments for the 3 or the 4 series of bonds that you have. And then in column 6, you see your annual payment. So you kind of total those up. And then, what you have in your budget is column 6. So it says something like that, $2.778 million for this year's debt payment. The bottom half of this chart, we call that the local effort. And what that is that's net of the state reimbursement that you receive. So column 12 shows that after you get the reimbursement back, your net payment instead of being 2.778 million in column 6, it's really about 2,028,000, something like that. So that's the net payment. Okay, so we're going to focus on column 12 when we show you the next page, which has some refinancing numbers and the new money numbers. And also take note that your debt, for school district debt, because we do this all over the state, we work for about 250 of the schools, your debt is very short. Okay, so it does present you with a unique opportunity where you can do something called a wraparound debt structure. Okay, and what that means is we're going to take the money that you're going to borrow and we're going to put it in the budget year 2029, which is where your debt kind of falls off. And what that does is it allows you to have the least amount of budgetary impact for the borrower. And that's, for school districts in PA that have that ability, the most common way to borrow money is through a wrap structure because it has the lowest budget impact. Okay? So any questions, and I'll show you the numbers here next, but is there any questions before we go to the main page? Okay. So if you flip to page numbered 4 now, we'll kind of walk through this page. So let's start on the left-hand side in columns 4 and 5. So you see your budget year in column 4, and then in column 5 you see your current debt payment. So if you do nothing, that's column 5. That's what we just were looking at. Okay. And so this would be a 2-step plan, similar to what we did 2 years ago. And in step 1, if you read the banner, it says refunds the Series A of 2020 and new money. So what we're doing is we're refinancing the 2020A, and then we're also going to issue, for purposes of the handout, we picked the highest amount, which was $760,000, because it kind of shows you the worst case scenario. So we're assuming that you borrow the $760,000 you need for the roof replacement project. Okay. And so when you look in column 6, those are the savings associated with the refinancing. And what we did is we spread the savings out equally, well, not quite equally, but sort of equally over the next 9 years, 8 or 9 years, so that it's meant to try and offset column 7. And what column 7 is that's the new money, the $760,000 that you're borrowing. And what you'll notice is it's, very small payments for the first kind of 6 or 7 years, that $13,000 number. And then there's one larger payment at the end. And the reason is that's the wrap structure, because your debt in column 5 pays off kind of in 28, you have a big drop off. It goes from $2 million down to $890,000. That's where we have the ability to wrap in the new debt. Okay. So that really the only impact to your budget is like that $13,000 number. So that would be step 1. Then right on the heels of that, similar to, again, 2 years ago, we would at the same time refinance the 2020 note, okay, in column 8. That one has a little more savings associated with it because it's shorter and has a little bit of a higher rate, all right? And so you can see you save about $20,000 to $22,000 a year. In column 8, again, we took it level over the life, so you'd save a little bit each year. So that at the end of the day, when all the dust settles, you would end up in column 9. So you would have $760,000 for your projects. You would have refinanced both of your existing notes. And so your new payment structure would be column 9. So you essentially go from column 5 to column 9. And when you look at column 9, you can actually see your annual payment is actually a little bit lower because of the savings from the refinancing. And then the final maturity of your debt is still 2029, but instead of it being $892,000 payment, it's about a $1.6 million payment. And that would be where the roof replacement, project dollars would be. Okay. So I will pause again. The only other thing to note, on this page is the rates that we're using are estimated rates based on the market, as we see it today. When we do this, if we do this, we'll have a competitive process. We'll bid this out to, about 35 banks across PA, and we'll see what rates they give us. They could be a little bit better. They could be a little bit worse, but we expect them to be, somewhat similar to what we're showing you here. So what questions or thoughts do you have about this?
Mr. Williard, this is David Petonic. Thank you.
Sure.
I forgot to ask this question earlier today. What rate or rates are these based on in nominal terms?
I think this is a rate of a 175 fixed. Again, it's not meant to be a quote. It's just, an estimate for illustrative purposes, and then we would see what kind of bids we get when we bid it out.
So is this basically just saying everything's going to be basically the same, except for maybe like $10,000 less a year for the next 6-7 years, but in year 8 we're going to be paying an extra $800,000?
Yes.
So we're just borrowing it and waiting for 8 years to pay it.
Yes.
Correct.
How do we know we'll have it in 8 years?
Well, how do you know you're going to have $2 million in 2028?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Well, so the way that the theory would be that, right now you have in your budget mills in place to pay column 5. That's already in your budget. So the trick here is if you just level fund your debt service, or you can even potentially shrink your debt service budget a little bit because you're going to save some money on the refinancing, you won't need to raise. It's not like you're raising an additional $2 million when you get out to 2028 because you already have that funded in your budget going forward. And that's kind of what I said earlier. That's the unique opportunity you have because you already have the mills in place. A lot of school districts, when they come to us and say, hey, we need to do a roof replacement or whatever the project is, they may need to go from a $2 million line item in their budget to a $3 million line item in the budget. So then they have to figure out over the next, 2 or 3 years, how do we get from $2 million to $3 million in our budget with all the other rising costs we have? You kind of have a unique spot because your debt's so short that you're not even going to need to change your debt service budget to do this project because it is relatively small in size, when you consider, the payments that you have.
Okay, I'm sorry. It just now clicked in my brain what that means. That was a very good explanation. Thank you. I get it now. Took a second.
Are there any other questions? I know that it's hard for him to hear, so I might have to repeat your questions.
Did I miss something that we have already agreed we're spending $750,000?
Nope.
No.
That's what the proposal is.
Well, this is
It's the high end.
Scenario.
Yeah, it's the high end.
It's
Right.
The highest amount.
a
That don't
sample.
mean-
The purpose of doing this was that you've been talking about doing a roof replacement project. And it's on the agenda to, get additional information on this. Actually, getting the information has been somewhat speeded up because of PFM and actually Mr. Pastel participating sooner than I had anticipated to get this basic information to you. And the second objective was for you to have this information to assist you in making an informed decision about how much of the bids to accept for the roof replacement project, so you understand what you can do and what you can't do. Because as of last week, you were looking at using fund balance. So going along with this, there will be a resolution called a declaration of intent or a reimbursement resolution in which you will be agreeing that these extra monies, well, they're not really extra, but you're sort of fronting money to get started with the roof project, and then you're eventually getting reimbursed for it, so it goes back into the fund balance. We actually don't know yet how long it will take to get to the point of really spending serious money on the roof project because of the mentioning by Mr. Scheller that the amount of time that it'll take to get the materials. But even under that scenario, in talking about this with Mr. Pastel, you still have the ability to meet certain guideposts under internal revenue regulations, which he'll explain to you much better than I can, within the necessary time periods to make the borrowing follow IRS requirements. So that's really it. So you're either going to come out of pocket and then it's gone from fund balance, or it appears to a borrowing. And your third option was quite messy and not guaranteed, of trying to figure out a way to still get started with the roof project and still try to get ESSER's monies involved, which wasn't matching up time-wise and wasn't matching up with the Davis-Bacon versus PA prevailing wage and all those other problems. So you're back to really two choices: using fund balance and it's gone, or in effect borrowing the money to pay for the roof over the actual replacement of the roof will last longer than the period of time you're borrowing the money for. At least it better.
Does anybody
Opposed
have
to as a
any,
capital item. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Willard? So we're not tying him up if there's no questions for him and we just have questions for David.
And Mr. Willard, obviously, I mean, if some other concern comes up, you have some other ways of trying to structure this. This seems the most obvious.
There's multiple ways you can do this. Because we were doing this quickly and we knew you had a meeting tonight, we kind of came up with this one option. There's different versions of this. I think the main point is that you do have a refinancing opportunity. You can save somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000. And if you're doing this kind of roof project, just know that you can kind of tie the two together and help alleviate the cost of the project. That was kind of the main point we wanted to get across, is that you do have the ability to do that. So if you come up with any other questions, just let your staff know and they can get back to us, and we're happy to run another scenario for you or whatever you need.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Willard.
you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for letting me zoom in personally. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
All right, take care.
Does anybody have any other questions before we move on to the rest of Mr. Masha's report?
I have a question. How does this fit into any potential long-range plan for the Southmoreland School District? Because we're talking something 8-9 years down the road here. How does that fit into the concept of a long-range plan, which I've talked about many times?
It would secure the roof for a long time for the kids to go to school. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about we don't know how many students we're going to have. We're looking down the road at what is happening in the whole thing. You put $750,000 into a building that you don't need in 2 years. Unless you're absolutely going to keep it up, keep it going if there's 10 kids there. I don't know. We don't have a long-range plan, Nicole. That's my problem. There's no vision for the future. There's no looking ahead, looking at potential assets, liabilities, and so forth. But if you just go ahead and increase this thing for another 8 years, I don't see how that doesn't lend itself to good planning.
I think we would definitely have to see, you got to fix the roof no matter what, whether we have one child or 100 children. If something's unsafe like that, I really think that is something that we're looking in the future for, whether we have one child or 100.
Nicole, if you look at building capacity versus the actual number of children, we're running about 1,100, maybe even 1,200 empty seats in our other buildings. There's no plan. There's no plan. It's just,
Are you basing that off this past year, though?
no, this is from the engineers in the Piper Jaffrey reports and so forth that we've
Is
had.
that going back to 2016? I believe that's the Eccles report that was done in 2016 that gave us some
Piper's
options. But it's going back to about that, and Eccles had given us some information on what we would need to do to put different groups of kids in different buildings. I personally am not comfortable in shoving children in every nook and cranny that we have and closing SPC only to find out that our enrollment is higher than where we think it's going to be. We're going to have more kindergartners next year based on what enrollment will be, plus adding in the children that were held back. So those will be even more kids that are in SPC for the next couple of years. But all of those things, moving children to different buildings, was going to cost us money as well. I don't think anything was free to, if my memory serves me correctly, in that Eccles report, there were lots of things that we would need to do to each building in order to put people in spaces. Yes, we have the third floor of this building somewhat empty, but I don't think it's going to be at the beginning of the school year. But I don't think that we can effectively close SPC right now anyway, so we would have to do a study, which would take 3 years. We have some major roof damage at SPC, so.
And even too, so say like it wouldn't be something that is favorable to us, money-wise. Say we wanted to sell it, we'd still have to fix the roof in order to sell it. I mean, nobody would buy it. I mean, and plus that would even make the roof worse in that amount of time. Yeah. I would think anyways.
We have a roof leaking in children's classrooms.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
On children.
on children. A child was wet this year from the roof.
I can't understand what you're saying.
I said the roof leaked this year. I was actually on the phone with Mr. Masha when he was driving out there. The ceiling tile came down in a classroom, water leaked on children. We have to do something
I
about
didn't
that.
say we don't repair it, Michelle. I didn't say that. I'm just saying that, you put $750,000 into a building, you may not even be able to get $750,000 for a building.
And can we afford to sell that building? That's the other thing. That's the only other property we have. And if there ever was growth here, there's a lot of farmland in East Huntington Township. If there ever was growth, where do we go with those families? Because there really isn't room in these buildings. All these seats that we say we have, I don't think that's true. Maybe I'm the only person that doesn't believe that, but Mr. Masha, what would your recommendation be?
I believe that we should invest in the roof. We also have to keep in consideration that some of the facilities that we utilize the softball field for our varsity softball team is housed on SBC property. So where would we'd be looking at, some type of restructuring our baseball field or rebuilding another field.
The report that Dr. Fike is talking about is the Piper Jaffray. That was for bond counsel. There were no architects, there were no engineers. They took the square footage of a building and determined how many students can fit in that building. And every time we do a bond counsel, that question comes up. And the previous superintendent, and I can't remember if Vince had said it, he invited the board to tour the school and find out where these, I don't know how many extra seats there were. Dr. Fike just said 1,200 to 1,500 seats.
It's 1,200.
1,200 seats in all the buildings, Dr. Fike? So you're saying there's...
The report that I have are two. One was Piper Jaffray, but the other one was the original Eccles. It was from Eccles.
Okay, so
And I
you're
think
saying
Piper
there's
Jaffray got theirs from
1,200
Eccles.
extra seats
Well, the capacity is...
in these buildings.
The
So
capacity compared to
go find them.
population.
Go find them.
Oh, Jason, we went through that before.
We did, and we didn't find them.
The whole third floor of the high school's empty. That's one whole floor.
And what do you have to do to the third floor to make it for student use?
Would that cost more than $750,000?
What students are you going to move there? I mean, at some point, it becomes inappropriate intermingling different age groups into buildings just because, and I know there are middle school, high school buildings, but those children are not intermingled. They're separate. They have a building on this side and a building on this side that keeps those things separate. I just think that you can't just say, I'm going to take and toss this group of kids here because they fit. Like I don't think that should be the way that we're moving forward.
Well, I do think one of those options was to put kindergarten at the high school on the 3rd floor, which I think is insane.
Yeah.
We weren't going to do that.
What's that?
We weren't going to do that.
Who was going to go on the 3rd floor?
There was never a reconfiguration of the district. I don't know how many students we have now. I think it's less than 1,800, unless I'm wrong. It was the last I saw.
1,530?
And in Pennsylvania, the most common configuration for school districts this side is K to 8, 9 to 12. Okay, but that's okay. Look, the long-range plan, if it would ever exist, should say what you're saying, Michelle. We're never going to change anything. We're going to keep everything. We're going to keep all, but put it down. Let's get a plan so that everybody knows that nothing's going to change. I think that's a plan too. That's a plan too. I don't think of it that way, but that doesn't matter. What I think doesn't matter. But I think we need a plan that says we're never going to change anything. We're going to put this money into these buildings. Just do it. But at least we should have it on record that this is what our goal is.
That's change.
Things have changed. We closed Roughdale. Before that, we closed the building. Moved the administration building.
We closed Central.
Yes.
And I remember when that happened, Jason, the world was going to come to an end. I'll never forget that. Oh, everything was just going to be awful, because they closed those buildings.
But they've been closed. We have closed them.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Masha, under your report?
I do. This is from the BOTS IQ competition. Amidst the chaotic, please excuse me, I have to read. I want to make sure that I get proper credit. Amidst a chaotic school year, Southmoreland High School BOTS IQ team was able to reach a new achievement, a first-place tie with Hempfield Area High School for best documentation. Southmoreland participated in BOTS IQ through high school STEM course, competitive robotics, an upper-level elective that culminates skills acquired through computer-aided drafting, automation and machining, electronics, and robotics. In its 16th year, BOTS IQ, through the Pittsburgh chapter of the National Tooling and Machining Foundation, encourages high school students to become interested in careers in manufacturing through designing, building, and testing a 15-pound BattleBot that competes against area high schools. In a normal year, roughly 80 teams from 60 high schools participate. However, due to the circumstance of the school year, only about 35 teams participated. This year, the competition was split into 4 sections. Southmoreland's team, the Sheriff, traveled to Commonwealth Charter Academy in the waterfront to put their robot to the test. They had 1 win over the GOW school from New York and 2 destructive losses to Hempfield area and Pine Ridgeland High School. In between each battle, teams must reconstruct and repair damaged parts of the robot and must pass inspections before cleared for battle. Throughout the designing and building process, teams must develop and maintain a documentation portfolio that contains resumes and cover letters, an interview with an industry advisor, project timelines, fundraising, research, and competition strategies regarding the frame and armor, electronics, power system, and weapon system, as well as engineering drawings. You can see it's quite extensive. The team would like to thank Swank Construction, Penn State Tool and Die Corporation, Reynolds Machine Company, and KAF Tech Industries for the continued industry support, as well as the support from the district as a whole. And I would like to congratulate Mr. Sherrick and his team for a fine job.
Yeah, very much so. That's awesome.
That will be the end of my report, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Business manager / budget report.
Well, I think we do need to talk about the budget situation because there are items here that will have an impact. So I sent out a 4-page email several days ago, and I believe Dr. Fike got this mailed to her. But anyway, on the 4th page of the email is a section from our budgeting manual. $830,000 of 5 projects, potential projects. And that's part of our proposed final budget. And it's listed on the very first page on line 13 under the category 4,000 facility projects, $830,000. So we need to make some decisions on, first off, you've got the consideration of the primary center roof, and you've got information from the architect. You got a bid on the roof, and the bid is broken down into sections of the roof. So you could do the complete roof, or you could do the immediate sections of concern. For example, the one that was had water fall on the children. So you can go from a limited roofing project to a complete roofing project. Now, we put in an amount back in May of $350,000 for the roofing project, but there were no decisions made on how extensive that project could be. So we have bid information. So I think we need to have a discussion on what do we plan to do with the roof has an impact on our final budget next week. Now, if based on the presentation tonight, and this presentation can be obviously scaled down to borrow less money than doing the full roof project. And the point I'm trying to make is, we have $350,000 on the expenditure side of this budget. And the way they have it structured here is that there would be no change to the existing debt service because you have savings from refinancing 2 bank borrowings that were done a year and a half ago. So what we could do is we could take this $350,000 off of our general fund, or leave that in there but replace it with let's say $350,000 of proceeds. So that reduces the potential deficit in the budget. Is that clear? Because right now this $350,000 it comes from one source, fund balance, either from assigned fund balances or unassigned fund balances. So that's part of the deficit. Now that $350,000 part of the deficit can be changed, eliminated with $350,000 of a proceeds from a borrowing. Or if you do the whole roof, $760,000 for doing the whole roof. So you have a discussion here of how much of a roof project do you want to do? And I think that's important as to what gets reflected then in our budget. Then, of course, there are 4 other projects here. Which ones, if of any, will we not consider during the next fiscal year? Now, we have $150,000 in assigned fund balance from the proceeds from the sale of the Roughdale building. So if you look at that list of 5 projects, you could do with that assigned fund balance. Now, I don't know what the final estimates will be for paving project or sidewalk projects or the track project, but you have $150,000 would, I think, potentially cover the paving and the sidewalk projects. Okay? So, when you think of deficit, think of that assigned fund balance as a revenue source. Okay? Understand? It's a revenue source. We can't count it as a revenue under accounting rules, but it is there. That would be its intended purpose, and that's its legal intended purpose, to go towards capital improvements somewhere to school facilities and grounds. So you would be using the proceeds for what the law says they should be used for. So what would that leave? A tennis court? Would we even consider doing that in the next fiscal year, or would you want to take the monies that are built in the budget, know that they would then roll over to the 22-23 budget that could be utilized for the tennis courts. Now, you're not ready to make a commitment to the tennis courts because there are underlying concerns to where it sits right now. There's a possibility that, I think underneath that hill are mines, coal mines. As you can see, the mine drainage out by the road from that little, is that a creek or that's just a runoff? You could see the discoloration in the water, so they have to do borings to see what's under there. And I think to do a proper tennis courts, you would have to strip out everything that is there and start with building a new proper base. And then you work your way up to, then the final decision is what type of surface would the student athletes play on? The type of surface that's there now, or perhaps a synthetic type of surface for a tennis court. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't think that you're at that point where you can commit to that type of project in the next 12 months. But I don't know. I know the architect and the engineer is going to study that. So we have some decisions to make, and I don't know where on the agenda we're talking about the roof bid, but I think that has to dovetail into what we do with the budget. And you saw on my email that I penciled in the numbers for our assigned fund balance so that, again, you have that fresh in your mind, $150,000 from the Roughdale proceeds. I strongly recommend that you do not touch the $207,000 that has been in the assigned fund balance for potential tax refunds from appeal cases that are still sitting out there or may arise. And then, of course, several months ago, discussing with our certified public accountant, Mr. Turnley, what to do with that excess that temporarily put our unassigned fund balance over that magical 8% limit. And we took out that amount of nearly $511,000, and we just said, let's set it aside, assign it for cyber charter school tuitions. Now, the flexibility with assigned fund balance is the fact that the school board has the authority to change the assignment from what it was stated for. When you commit fund balance, then that pretty much locks it in to what you intend to do with it. So, but that's just my recommendation that we know the $150,000 will go towards capital improvements. Strongly recommend you keep that $207,000 for tax refunds. The flexibility that you have there, I think, is then with the $511,000. And considering the history that we've had with cyber charter school tuitions, you may want to leave it at that. But again, that's a decision that you folks need to consider. So, and my final recommendation is that whatever we can do, if we can possibly not touch the unassigned fund balance. Right now, it's at 7.1% of next year's proposed expenditure budget, which includes all these projects. So we are under the 8%, but I know that's a tough decision to make. And again, as far as budgeting update is, we still don't know what is going to happen in Harrisburg. Here it is, June 17th. And they're still fiddling down there while Rome burns. So I don't understand what is wrong with those politicians, why they can't pass a budget, at least by early June, so that all the entities that depend on a state budget know what they need to do for passing their budgets, but they don't care. So, and of course, I know there's a discussion item on the agenda. What, if any, further cuts want to be discussed for the final budget? So I'm going to just stop right there and see.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes.
The Tribune Review ran a pretty lengthy article in the Sunday paper about districts having problems financially and so forth, but this last statement is really, really important. If you would just bear with me, so maybe you can explain it. It says expenses related to the pandemic that were incurred throughout the school year can largely be covered by federal stimulus funds sent to the district. And there's a quote here. They can apply those funds to anything that was running over budget because they overspent their budget. This person, DeRocco, said. He noted expenses include transportation, food service, or education. And then he has a quote here, and this was the part I was wondering about. He said, anything they were doing in relation to the pandemic, they could use those federal dollars for that and backdate it. Can you tell me what he would be talking about in terms of using the term federal stimulus funds? Is that the same as ESSER?
Well, let's talk about it. Let's break down what he said, and I may ask you to repeat some of that quote. But yes, he's referring to what we all know now as ESSERs. And let's go back to last year to ESSERS 1, which was somewhere in the neighborhood of $359,000. Now, we committed $300,000 of that to make that down payment on the Chromebooks and laptops for virtual learning, distance learning, okay? And the other $59,000 was spent on items that were needed because of the virus. For example, if you go into buildings, you have those stand-up temperature stations. There was modifications made to the water fountains. There was individual stand-up sterilization centers, with Purells, so that you didn't touch them, you just put your hand under them. There were extra special sanitary cleaning supplies that were brought in by our companies for the purposes of the custodians doing the deep cleaning. There was special equipment for the custodians that was demonstrated and purchased for them. I think it was the sprayers. I think we purchased with that extra $59,000, and I'm probably leaving out some things. I'm not sure, but and so ESSERS 1 was committed and expended. Now we just digest recently ESSERS 2, which is in this proposed final budget, and that's around 1.4 million, give or take. Okay, so through our discussions, this winter and spring, we committed to a number of items to be used with ESSERS 2. There was the continuing need. We had in the regular general fund budget, we had those monies for the math curriculum. So we decided we could use ESSER's money to pay for that. So that was like an extra revenue source that helped bring down the potential deficit that we were looking at. We decided to take a chunk of that, $331,000, to pay off those Chromebooks and laptops that were purchased from Dell. We basically paid for the first year of the lease. It was a 3-year lease, and the first series of monthly lease payments was to start this coming November, I believe, October or November. But we got a payoff figure, and I have it set that it can be paid off on or before August 1st, and it's $331,000 some odd dollars. So there's that amount of money that will come out of ESSERS 2. We agreed through that group to the purchase of psychological services. I believe it was $50,000 was to come out of that ESSERS 2 money. Dr. Clare, had over $800 and some thousand dollars of ESSERS 2 that he went over, and you know what, I didn't bring my ESSERS 2 folder with me, but for summer school programs, right? And that may not be the right term, but I'll just use it, summer school programs, and special other needs. So, the commitment to use ESSERS 2 is in place. Now, the next series of ESSERS, and they call it ARP, American Recovery Plan, ESSERS 3, is somewhere around $3.4 million. Now, that is what has to be studied next. They talked about a run out of these ESSER payments to certain dates in the future. So ESSERS 1 is already committed and done with. ESSERS 2 We have that booked in to be spent completely next year, okay? And ESSERS 3 has a run out through September 30th of 2024. So, you have time to plan for that and build it into, you could either start, if you have a plan, a partial plan, you could start that during the upcoming year, in which case, the school code allows you to reopen your budget, to recognize new federal grants or even new state grants that weren't originally anticipated or known. You could open up your budget and say, okay, we're going to spend now $200,000 of ESSERS 3 as a revenue source and the $200,000 as an expenditure source. So you're at a wash there as you continue to plan how to use ESSERS 3. Now, there are items in there that, my opinion is, all the custodial supplies from our two major suppliers, which would run around $85,000 to $100,000, I think would qualify under the ESSERS 3 as one of those potential items that reporter has identified. Now, there are some other items in there that you mentioned in his quote. School busing. We didn't go over our school busing budget, but if you had to put in place, let's say, additional school busing for keeping students, separated, now that would qualify. And I don't believe we did any of that during the past 15 months. But I see that as a qualifying item under the ESSERS plan. So if let's say you decided, and when he talked about backdating, I don't know how you do that, but I understand that concept. I just don't understand. No one would have known, months ago that, hey, we're going to get an ESSERS 3. But maybe at the beginning of the year, there might have been, let's say, more busing added to keep students separated, so there weren't so many students on a bus. Then they come up with ESSERS 3. You could say, okay, so instead of eating the cost of that out of local funds, we now have ESSERS 3 to reimburse ourselves. So I understand that. And what were some of the other items he mentioned?
Well, it dealt a lot with food service.
Yes, food service, that's correct.
It said educational services.
Yes, educational services. If you had to implement, for example, you did the distance learning. So, if there's continued ongoing costs for distance learning purposes, of course, you could identify those in ESSERS 3. Let's say you need more Chromebooks or other type of technology to continue to facilitate that, or whatever. Yes, that would qualify.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
So if we have teachers who are assigned to teach virtually because of this, could we put ESSERS money towards their salary?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. Some might say yes.
Okay.
But I really don't know if I can ask you to,
if you maintained the same number of teachers, then COVID hasn't really affected you.
That's what I was going to lead to.
And that's one of the problems to try to show COVID relatedness, because that's kind of weaving throughout this. In the memo that I gave you and in the frequently asked questions, and it's kind of one of those, still ambiguous statements. The frequently asked question is, can an LEA use ESSER funding to increase the base teacher's salary or provide bonuses to teachers? Our ESSER funds may be used to pay stipends, bonuses, or salaries if the LEA, that's us, the local educational agency, can connect the compensation to issues resulted from COVID-19. So
well, we wouldn't have virtual
it's not
teachers
just
if we
automatically
didn't have
saying,
COVID.
well, we had 100 teachers back on March, whatever, 2020, and so we want to pay their salaries going backwards in time and have our ESSERs pay for that.
I'm thinking more
I don't think you
forwards
can
in
do
time.
that. I think there has to be some relatedness to COVID. I'm sorry.
I was thinking more forward in time, not necessarily backward in time.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't have virtual teachers if COVID hadn't happened.
But what he's saying is if you had 100 teachers on March 10th and you still have 100 teachers, you haven't incurred an extra cost because of COVID.
But if we would have allowed all those kids to go to a different virtual learning setting, we may not have had that many teachers. If that many kids would have left that were actually taught by our teachers, but didn't we use ESSER's money to prevent that from happening?
Well, I suppose you could try that. It's so theoretical that I don't know how you prove it.
You know, you were on a certain track this winter with the potential of furloughing employees because of the budgetary situation, and there's language in the ESSERs that says basically to keep existing staff employed. Now that might have been maybe geared more towards other entities that would be laying off staff. I don't know how. Maybe you could come up with a list of, well, these were the people that we were going to economically furlough, and then turn around and say, okay, we're going to use ESSERs to keep them employed. Now, whether that would hold water or not, I don't know. But going back to teachers and learning, let's say you felt the need to add teachers for a limited time during the crisis to enhance virtual learning or to keep students separate. Maybe you wanted to use that section up there as a classroom. You've got the curtain there. And when I went to a junior high, we had sections like that were homerooms and classrooms, but they had desks. But anyway, you could say, okay, we're going to have a teacher there so that we can further space out our kids, knowing full well that those temporary positions would be gone after the funding was done. And maybe a special contract, a temporary professional contract could be devised so that they would agree that yes, I'll accept employment for the next 2 years so that you can keep students separated. Also, maybe it would qualify for maybe adding. You mentioned food service department. There's discussions. I don't know where it's going to lead to. That food service departments have lost revenues because of this. That there's a potential that with the calculation of here's what things look like pre-pandemic, and this is what they look like during pandemic. We our lunch counts went down X percent. Our reimbursement is X dollars per lunch, so we theoretically lost X thousands of dollars in school lunches and school breakfast. That there's a potential that you could use ESSERs to reimburse the food service departments for that lost revenue. That might come to fruition. I don't know that yet because and that's just not me talking. Mr. Masha has studied this, Mr. Patonic, and we had a discussion last night with another business manager at the local shop and say like a miniature business manager. I mean, we were talking about this for 45 minutes. There's still a lot of unknown there, and we're all frustrated. We attend meetings, we watch webcasts, and you throw out questions, and it seems like people in authority don't want to say yes, you can do that.
Nobody wants to.
No one wants to do that because they're talking about federal law,
Right.
and when you're talking about law, especially federal law, and you've got federal auditors that are going to be coming down the pike to look at how you use these monies, and there's special provisions in there, maintenance of effort requirements, so on and so forth, and looking at percentages of how that money is utilized or not utilized. So yeah, there's a lot of hesitancy there. Yeah, the easy things, summer learning, and perhaps you want to use ESSERS 3 to continue that, and I think you should, for the summer of 22 and for the summer of 23. And since the run out of ESSERS 3 is September 30th of 2024, for the summer of 24. So, those wages and benefits, and when I talk about benefits, PSER's contribution and Social Security and the additional, little workers' comp, because workers' comp is based on total payroll. You've got the summer of now ESSERS, this summer's taken care of with ESSERS 2, but you've got 22, 23, and 24 that you could utilize ESSERS 3 for. That's an easy. Knock that one out of the park.
We could do after-school tutoring.
You could do after-school tutoring. You could put on busing to take the kids home from after-school tutoring, and I think that would definitely qualify
Okay.
under ESSER's
What
3.
about like SAT prep for kids who have missed that? Maybe a class for the juniors or seniors?
Yes,
Okay. So those are the types of things we're looking at for next school year?
yes.
Gotcha.
Dr. Fike, did you, in Mr. Patonik's information for us, there was an ARP Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief ESSER's Fund frequently asked questions. Did you get that from him with your agenda packet?
No.
Okay, can we make sure that she gets a copy of that? Not that I think you're going to get the answers that you're seeking. It might be in last
wait a minute, we got a lot of information in the last meeting.
Okay, it might be
that's
in
the one.
there.
That's where it's
It
at.
might be in that. And not that I think you're going to get your answers, only because when you read this, I think you read it and it says, can I do blah, blah, blah? Then it says, it'll give you an answer, but then it'll say, but, and still doesn't give you an answer. But, I mean, you can see that we're all asking, all districts are asking the same
Michelle, do you remember when
questions.
I encouraged Dr. Clara to talk to that Dr. McKendrick, I think his name was, and he seemed to be the guru who knew all the answers?
He's not,
No longer in that
he's
position.
no longer in that position. And the person that took over that position has not been as helpful as he had been.
Because that guy seemed to really give you yes and no's. He
Yeah,
was
and-
black and white. He knew exactly what he was doing. But Michelle, when you get into this stuff, you get interpretation too by different people.
I mean, that's basically where we're at.
We got to play it safe because we don't want to have to pay anything back.
No. And there's so many things that we should be able to use it for that you would hate to pay money back that we could have used somewhere else appropriately.
See, I think so far we've really played by the rules. I think we've done everything right as far as that goes. But if we're looking at how ESSERs can help our budget, this is where we have to be careful, right?
Right.
Sure.
Okay. And Jim, you said here there's $860,000 in the budgetary reserve, but there's really only $50,000, right, in the budgetary reserve, and the rest is ESSER's money.
Well, that category is it used to be 400,000.
Yeah.
When I came here.
Yeah.
That is there for those temporary times when you got a category in the budget. Geez, my mind is going blank, and we've had this happen in the past where
They always used roof.
well 50,000 won't cover the roof, but you have a category in the budget that you might, let's say, at 5,000 for, and you find out it's actually going to be 10,000, and you worry about, we're going to be over budget there. Well, authorize a transfer out of that budget.
It was kind of a rainy day kind of thing.
Well, it is a very small.
But it's only $50,000 now.
It is. It's only 50,000, and that 50,000 is part of that unassigned fund balance that's sitting out here, and a lot of times we don't even transfer money from it. We don't.
I don't
use
think
it.
we ever have.
Yeah, it's been
Did
rare.
we? I don't think so.
It's been a few years at least.
Yeah, okay.
Now, continue on with, the coronavirus, ESSERs 1, 2, and 3. I think one key area in there is, I'll give you the language. Inspection, testing, maintenance and repair, replacement and upgrade projects to improve air quality.
Yeah.
So, one of the bullets, and this was a webcast that I attended back on Friday the 4th by the Pennsylvania Institute of CPAs. It was called the Pennsylvania School District Conference. And they talk about, the one bullet point is window and door repair. So I like that category because, and I don't want to raise any ire when I mention the primary center. But, we have old windows there, and those windows have blocks of wood holding in window air conditioners from the local hardware store. Now, we went through a process back in 2016 and 17. It's called the Guaranteed Energy Savings Projects. It's under Act, I think it's Act 29 in the school code, and it had different Act numbers in the past from when it started to current. But anyway, one of the potential topics or estimates that we got through Johnson Controls was, replacing the windows with energy efficient windows, and conversely putting I call it generic term, central air conditioning for the building. What do the building people call it? a chiller system or a new HVAC system for that school. So, you know, that certainly would qualify under ESSER's 3, and again, that gets into a discussion of the long-term uses of that building. But also, it applies to the other buildings. For example, we were talking today about that whole room air purifier that's in the business office. Now, that was put in as a demonstration. Now, we paid for it, but as a demonstration that it's sized for a whole classroom. And our electrical contractor studied it, installed it, and says, you know what? You know, we could get a good price for these, better than what you got for one. But, you know, you could do this for all classrooms. Or the place where the air is coming out, you could, I don't know, I used the term retrofit your heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems to purify the air before it gets into the room, rather than send the air in and then you have to hope that the air purifiers clean it up enough before you breathe it in, which I don't think really happens, but it's better than the little standalone ones that you see sitting in the corners. So,
Mr. Marnell, are you okay if we move on? Because we have a very lengthy agenda.
oh, absolutely.
And we need to make some decisions about all these things he's discussing. I think they're at the beginning of old business.
I apologize.
And Dr. Fike, if you'd like to pick yourself up off the floor after I tell you this one. We discussed HVAC as possibly because you could include HVAC at SPC and do the roof all at the same time, which would then make it qualify for ESSER's money. And air conditioning was roughly, Mark Scheller told us about $2 million for air conditioning.
So they're really pushing this HVAC stuff from ESSER's. I mean, they're kind of done with surfaces and things like that. They're really looking at ventilation and air purification.
$2 million is a little crazy. So.
It is.
So
what would that include the whole district?
No, that was just SPC.
Oh, just for the one?
Yeah. Because I think SPC would need ductwork and everything. Okay, so moving on. Solicitor information.
I've had discussions with the solicitor for East Huntington Township concerning the LERTA, and they will be having a meeting next Thursday, and whether they pass it or don't, well, I would assume they're going to pass it, but assuming if they do pass it, but either way he will notify me, and so I'm planning on having an agenda item for you to approve the requested LERTA for East Huntington Township. He'll notify me as to whether or not it passed, and I'll bring that information with me, and then you could conceivably vote on it on that night rather than delaying into July. That one's pretty easy to deal with, and because they meet earlier in the day, it seems conceivable to do that. It still will be up to the county, though, to pass, and I'm supposing that's going to be early July. The handout that I gave you tonight includes changes to, really not that many, the ordinance which Scottsdale Borough is going to be passing. And just to highlight some things in there, in the handout, page 2 of 7 describes the areas. The downtown is A, B is the Scottsdale Historical District, C is all industrial and commercial properties designated for LERTA treatment on the properties list. And so attached to your handout is the color-coded version of the basic area A, holding it up so that you can follow along. And then B is the historical area, which picks up some additional area that way. And then C are three sort of standalones. Wellspring Church used to be the Mennonite Publishing House, the American Legion, and the Central Grade Building. Now, it doesn't mean that any one of those necessarily are lined up to do, for sure, a renovation. It just means that they are significant properties that could qualify under the various conditions for the LERTA. Additionally, properties approved for an institutional conversion could, and then the big catch-all is any other industrial or commercial property that has been the subject of an order of government agency, including but not limited to the order of the Borough of Scottsdale requiring it to be vacated, condemned, or demolished. I'm sorry, I left out all properties designated as I-1 general industrial zones under the Scottsdale Borough zoning ordinance, which is pretty much basically down closer to the railroad tracks. Section 3, the schedule of exemption, Mr. Falatovich and I spent time working on language to include the provision that if people are behind on taxes and assessments, to make sure that we've got language in here to make sure that that happens. The previous discussions about the schedule, the percentages of forgiveness or abatement are year 1, 100%, year 2, 100%, year 3, 75%, year 4, 50, year 5, 25, and then year 6, 0. So in the resolution that you have in your board docs, you're being asked to say, okay, we agree with that for sure, would be a cleaner signal to them. There had been another one discussed at the meeting that the board members and I attended, and this one seemed to be the most generally acceptable. So the rest of the resolution then goes into some details about the mechanics of it, which really haven't changed. The one area that is potential difference, and you can do this. The ordinance has been advertised insofar as the basic requirements. However, you don't have to agree on the length or the time window during which the program will be in effect. And I have an opinion. It's ultimately your discretion and your decision. Theoretically, you don't have to have one. I think Mr. Falatovich and I both agree it's good to have one. My gripe about the 20-year provisions are that I think it could take away the urgency of owners, current owners who are going to keep properties, not a new person coming in, to get going with their project. Number two, it may actually prolong the period of blight because of that. Number three, and what I'm worried about here is it may be expected by other entities in other areas of the school district which have greatly different circumstances. And I've alluded to that before, that you've treated and are likely to treat the areas around the former Volkswagen Sony area is different, and then there may be other areas in other portions of the school district that you may want to look at differently. Finally, 20 years, is a long time. You don't have a deadline to sort of do an evaluation, decide whether or not it's working, expand it, or even terminate it sooner, which theoretically you could do. So that's my comments. You have discretion on that. Those are my comments. I've sort of maintained my position on that. But so you could vote tonight to indicate that you're requesting the borough to go with the 100, 100, 75, 50, 20, and that you like the language in here. You could decide tonight or not decide tonight what you want to do about the length of the plan. Do you want a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan, 6-year plan, whatever. Or if you don't want to decide that tonight, that portion of it you could actually hold back on. So that's all I have on Scottsdale LERTA. Other areas of the agenda, The sidewalk repair project, as I understand it, we had hoped that there would be some additional proposals, and Mr. Basham tried to get them, and they didn't come in. So we're not sure whether or not they'll be in next week or whether or not the people aren't interested. So that's still not ready. The other area that you're going to come across are the geotechnical services to have done in order to do the paving project. And those did come in, and there were 3. I hope I remember to bring them. They came in late this afternoon. So Cernica Engineering, CERNICA, is the lowest, and for drilling and sampling, it's $3,214.75, and for the engineering, it's $2,480, so you have to add those two together. It does include laboratory testing. I originally sort of misread that in the middle of the page here. And one area that you could have some involvement with is after they drill, those holes need to be filled back up. And they'll do that, but after some period of time, they're calling our attention to the fact that it may subside and you may need to go in there and put in some additional material or some macadam if, depending on how long it is till you get to that area being repaid. The other folks, Geotechnical Consultants, Inc., they came in at a combined amount of $7,600. And Intertech PSI came in also in the $7,000 range, which was $7,000. Boy, this is hard to find. $7,348. Mr. Scheller did indicate that he's worked previously before with the Cernica folks and is confident that they could do a good job for you. So if you approve them, then there would be a form to sign and they could be put on your list of things to still be getting done over the summer to keep moving with those projects. I think I'm almost covered everything. I think that the memo that I did and the frequently asked questions actually went in for this meeting. I previously last week had a guidebook. It was put out by PDE. That's also very important. So to understand this, you really need to read that guidebook, the frequently asked questions, and the memo. And it still doesn't answer everything.
Or anything.
Well, to answer something. So then when you get to the roof replacement, you're going to be choosing whether you want to do everything, only the base bids, which were previously described to you, replacing the most severe wet areas, which is sort of in between, or coming up with a different option on your own.
I have a question in regards to that. I don't know if you have the information there in front of you. The warranty, if we were to go with, I think it's option 3, which is all of the areas except 2 and maybe 6, because those were the newest areas previously.
I just don't feel comfortable answering that question, I'm sorry. That's really a question for Mark.
I just didn't know if do you remember, Jason, does the edge-to-edge cover that? Or the edge-to-edge only covers if you literally do everything?
I cannot remember what he said, but I know that there was a problem with the edge from the new to the old, how they would warranty that section, the edge part of it. So I'm not sure.
Do you remember how long the warranty was, Mr. Bubonic? The ditch there, the warranty?
He did say, Michelle, some of the spots, like, I asked him about that section 5, over the kitchen area, and he said that's a different elevation, so that warranty wouldn't be a problem, because it's, there's a spot that you actually stop, you don't connect it to the other part since it's a different elevation. That's the only thing I remember him saying about
I'm
it.
struggling to remember about the warranty, and boy, I don't want to swear to this, but I think it was 10 years. Does somebody else remember 10?
I thought that's what it was, but again, I wouldn't swear to it either.
Because the track is 5 and can't get any more. And the roof, I'm remembering, is 10, even though you have a life expectancy, you should have a life expectancy longer than that.
Yeah. Is that all you have?
Let me check. Oh, the thing that was almost said but not quite about the tennis courts, which make them problematic to deal with, is that part of the investigation of that would be engineering work. And you might spend money to start down that path and find out that to really stabilize that would require injecting, I guess it would be some kind of form of cement or slurry of some sort to fill voids underneath. So the nerve-wracking thing about the tennis courts are the cost, the starting cost, but then not knowing whether or not the site is good and whether or not you're going to be able to afford fixing the site. And if you don't do that, where else do you put them? Which are all reasons about why it's so hard to deal with in the context of the current budget year. And the bigger decision which you have to make is, are those kinds of costs justified by the program size, the participants, which is your decision. Thank you.
CWCTC report.
No report this time.
WIU report.
I don't have a report this month.
PSBA liaison report.
Also tonight.
Do we have any committee reports?
I can speak for the Policy and Personnel Committee. We have come to, I believe, a final rough draft for the agreement for those who are not covered under any agreement or plan right now. So that is going to be sent to those people to review, and then hopefully next week we will be able to vote on it. We are also going to, our last committee meeting had to be canceled because we ended up scheduling a board meeting at the same time. So we had to cancel that, but our next meeting is next month. And we'll start with the zeros and 100s of the policies.
Did anybody else have any committee reports? Budget updates, I think we already went through that fairly well. I think some of these other things need to be decided before we circle back around to that discussion. Sidewalk repair project.
That has to be tabled.
Okay.
I have the information.
I had asked Mr. Basham to look into a third option for the sidewalks, and I think he's still trying to get some prices on that. Grinding was an option, replacing the slabs was an option, and then what I had asked him to check into was leveling the slabs, which is supposed to be cheaper than replacing the concrete. And I think he's having some trouble securing some prices on that yet.
He did reach out to 2 companies, and they have not got back to him, and he was reaching out again to them, plus an additional company. He has not heard anything back as of right now.
So I need a motion to table the sidewalk repair project.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, paving project, geotechnical service.
It's anticipated that the architect will receive proposals by noon, which they did today, June 17, 2021, so that the amounts will be reported at the June 17, 2021 meeting later that evening, which they were. Southmoreland School Board accepts the proposal of, and you will need to make a decision if you are going to go that direction, to the name of the company. I do believe Mr. Petonic had said that Cernica was the lowest bid, and here is the actual for that. In its response to the form request for proposals, Geotechnical Services A1A document 6602-1993 and accompanying letter dated June 11, 2021 from Mark Scheller, Eccles Architect and Engineering for geotechnical investigation by District Paving at Southmoreland High School and the Southmoreland Middle School and Southmoreland Elementary Schools for the following amounts. If you were to go with Cernica, there would be an amount here.
Was, do you have a total amount on that?
For Cernica?
Yeah, I think Mr.
$5,694.75.
Okay.
Say that again.
$5,694.75.
Thank you.
So I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to use the lowest bidder. I had trouble hearing what the name of the company was, but for the...
CERNICA Engineering, Inc.
Okay, Cernica.
Should I prepare a purchase order then tomorrow?
Well, there's actually a form
There's a
proposal that Mark has to fill in some blanks on and send to us.
I'll second.
Plus this.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
SPC roofing bids.
Be it resolved that, including in this resolution, are the architect's bid tab results and drawings designating the areas of the roof attached hereto. For information purposes, the roof moisture survey is also attached. Southmoreland School Board declares the following to be the lowest responsible bid and accepts the bid of Ramp Construction Company, Inc. of 84 Pennsylvania for roofing replacement at Southmoreland Primary Center in East Huntington Township on Echo Engineering Project number 21012 for the roof areas, and awards the contract to Ramp Construction Company, Inc. and rejects those not accepted as follows. And there are 4 options. Option 1, the entire roof replacement containing the following, which are areas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Option 2, only base bid and ultimate area 1. Option 3, replace most severe wet areas, base bid 1, 3, 4, 5. And option number 4, above on states which of the following in the motion and out of the motion. So you have to choose which one of those options would be picked and which ones would not.
So I need a motion, and then maybe we can discuss the bond issue as well at this time. But to get to the discussion portion, we would need a motion.
Make a motion to talk about replacing the entire roof.
So that would be option, your motion is for option 1.
Correct.
I need a second.
What was that, option 1?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Discussion. So my concern between option 3, which would be to basically replace all of the bad areas, minus the 2 areas that were the most recently completed or repaired, is that warranty. So if we're not going to have an edge-to-edge warranty because we didn't replace $98,000, how much of a concern is that to other people who may know more about this type of roof system than I do?
Yeah, what would be the point then? Why spend $671,000 and not have a guaranteed
And not
warranty?
have a warranty.
That's what I was thinking too.
And what if they dive into it?
Just fix it right.
And then also included in this discussion, I think, should be the bond issue, because that is a way to pay for it and remove this from this year's budget, correct, Mr. Marnell? So if you would put proceeds in here.
It would be a bank loan and not a bond issue.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. No, that's okay. I just want the, in case anybody reads the record or watches.
Okay.
Bond issues are a lot more expensive than bank borrowing.
So this would just be a bank loan, which would be added to that payment like we just received that information, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay, and then how would this be offset in the budget?
Can I clarify
Maybe a
something? Are you both
refinance?
talking about the same thing?
Right.
Are you talking about just borrowing
Yes.
$761,000, or are you also doing the refinancing of the
Well, I was
existing
talking
debt?
about refinancing and everything where we would, because there's going to be some savings there as well for us. I was talking about doing exactly as the presentation was earlier this evening.
Okay,
Yes, I understood that. Yes.
all right.
Do the whole roof and package it in with the refinancing savings that we have because, again, interest rates have come down. And the way it's structured, to me, it's a win-win for the district. It's a win for the building.
You may remember this better than I do. I could not remember for sure this morning whether they had they had already made a decision or if they're going to present options between bank loan for everything or bond. I don't remember that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you don't remember that because that didn't come up that I remember either.
That didn't come up.
Right, so that's still an open question.
Well, I would agree with you then.
And they can still present both scenarios.
And maybe we can, send an email to Zach and say, Zach, were you going to perhaps, as an option, discuss a bond issue to refinance all this? We didn't discuss that this morning.
It wasn't clear in my mind.
No.
This seemed like it was just a refinance of what we financed a few years ago. Basically, like refinancing the loan that we took out a few years ago.
Yeah, personally,
That's what I
I think
understood.
because of the short history, maybe that's not the right word, the short duration of the existing debt service, to me, I think precludes the advantages that you normally would have with doing a traditional general obligation bond issue, because those are generally structured for like 20 years to 30 years. And I think that's why when a year and a half ago when we did the refinancing of sections of bond issues, that we went with these bank loans because of the short duration of the existing debt service versus, the much greater costs of doing a bond issue.
Okay.
It's very expensive to do.
So my question is, if we were to go the route of the whole thing, you would show that as an expenditure in our budget right now and also showing it as a revenue?
Yes,
Okay.
because I would have to reflect in the budget the proceeds from the borrowing, which would be the new money.
Right.
$760,000.
Right.
And then on the expenditure side, you would show the $760,000 going to, the company that you would award the bid to, RAMP. So those offset each other, and the additional savings to the budget is the $350,000
Right.
that's in there would go away.
Okay. What is anybody else's?
So it's actually 769,000.
Yeah.
What is everybody else's? Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Will we need to walk on examining, like getting actual proceeding with this?
I thought there was a spot in the agenda for that, farther down.
Yeah, new business, pursuing.
It's under new business to keep pursuing it.
Okay, good. Okay, so I have a motion, I have a second to do option 1. Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
No.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 2 no, 1 absent.
Breaking, reducing amounts, or adding items and amounts to the fiscal year 2021-2022 general fund balance.
The board decides on major items yet to be resolved. For example, tennis courts, be it resolved that the school board directs that the following items be stricken from the final budget, and conversely also the following items to be changed for the final budget. They are to be decided.
Can we revisit this once we get to new business? Do I need a motion to suspend the rules there, or?
Yeah, to drop it down further in the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Voice vote.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Scottsdale Borough LERTA.
The board is asked to recommend to the Scottsdale Borough Council for its approval a 6-year agreement for LERTA with the Scottsdale Borough at a schedule of year 1, 100%, year 2, 100%, year 3, 75%, year 4, 50%, year 5, 25%, year 6, full amount, and that it sunset, and that will be determined X number of years after enactment.
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion with the 20 years after enactment.
I need a second. Discussion?
So while I understand what Mr. Botonic is saying and his reasonings, I had a little bit of further conversation with some of the members, and I believe that their last LERTA was a 20-year, whatever you call it, enactment, and their intention is to keep this going because it's good for the borough. So they're not even sure why it was allowed to lapse the last time. They think, my impression is that they think that it's something that should be offered all the time to try to keep businesses improving and coming in.
Can you clarify something for me, Christy?
I can try.
Okay. So say I buy a property and I renovate. My year 1, then my part of this goes for 6 years.
Correct.
So somebody else, 2 years after I do mine, decides to buy a property and do the same thing, renovate.
Mm-hmm. And theirs
so
is 6
then
years.
okay, then they have 6 years.
Correct.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
So the time that you can choose to do that, you have 20 years to decide if you want to do that or not. And I think it's important to remember that you don't lose any taxes. And we had asked a couple of questions. Mr. Botonic can correct me if I'm wrong. For instance, they have to approve what is being done before it's done. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to make this, and that's going to be my improvement. Don't make me pay taxes on it. The borough has to approve that first through the either getting the
Building permit.
building permit, correct. So I know there had been some discussion of the publishing house possibly being made into apartments. And there were concerns about that. And they said, well, before that would ever happen, first of all, there's not a lot of parking, you know, blah, blah, blah. But before that could ever happen, that would have to be approved by the borough. It can't just happen. So they do have things in place to try to help with that.
That's true. I believe that was said at the meeting. That's correct.
Okay.
So this action is just to have the enactment or have this in place for 20 years? No, okay. I was a little bit, because I was like, wait a minute, I thought the state only allotted 10 years, but that's only for up to 10 years to have tax forgiveness. Okay.
Just to clarify this again, the schedule of reductions takes 6 years to get to zero.
Right. Right.
But if you waited to year 19, you would still get the 6 years under a 20-year plan.
Right.
If you had a 10-year plan, you could go to year 9, and provided you got it applied in time. And even though the plan ended in year 10 and maybe wasn't renewed, you would still be grandfathered in and get your 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the school district participated in the last LERTA. They had participated in one before that. But the borough then did one that the district did not participate in. And so that's another difference from historical considerations.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Pelakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Pursuing information on financing for SPC roof project.
Be resolved that the administration and solicitor are authorized to obtain information and proposals for services from the following for possible issuance of debt for financing the Southmoreland Primary Center roof project. Number 1, Bond Counsel Clifford Pastel of Dinsmore and Scholl LLP, and number 2, Financial Advisor PFM Financial Advisors LLC.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
Didn't this already happen though?
We just needed to make a motion.
Oh, okay.
to approve it.
Okay, I'm like, wait a minute.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Pelakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Heather Smith?
Yes.
Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Approval of paraprofessionals.
Board is asked to approve, effective July 1st, 2021, the following list as paraprofessionals for the 2021-2022 school year, and they're individually signing a copy of the plan. Grace Perk, Jamie Fisher, Bonnie Harshman, Sierra Hodge, Barbara Lemley, Melissa Maines, Lori Mondock, Brianne Pachalak, Patty Rodriguez, Keith Smitley, Amanda Springer, Melinda Stimmel, Rachel Zolik, Sandra Tilka, Wendy Welts, and Nicole Wright,
Yeah, Haley Rates.
and Haley Rates.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
As it lists like paraprofessionals, like all of them are going to be involved with special education?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Item number 3 is to advertise for school police officer. Can somebody make a motion to table that till later in the agenda, and then we have an item that we need to walk on?
I make a motion to table.
I need a second. Is there any discussion about that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, and I need a motion to walk on an item. I think we have 2 items that we wanted to walk on.
I have one, yeah. I'll make a motion to walk on an item, to suspend the rules to walk on an item.
I need a second.
What would the item be?
Increasing the rate for secretarial subs from $7.25 to $10 an hour.
You seconded. Yeah. Any discussion about that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then I have another walk-on item. Oh, I'm sorry, opposed? Sorry, I have another walk-on item, if somebody would like to make a motion for that.
I would like to make a motion for that, for the custodial supervisor.
So I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion?
What's this one?
It's
Custodial supervisor.
To walk on the custodial supervisor. It wasn't on the agenda, I'm sorry.
To hire.
To hire a custodial supervisor. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those items that are being walked on, if anybody has any comments on those, they can call in. They'll be given 5 minutes before those items are voted on. Okay. Yes. (2021-2022) WIU STEAM Lending Library.
Board is asked to approve an agreement with Westmoreland IU and Southmoreland, the WIU 2021-2022 STEAM Lending Library.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
What is this? Like, I mean, I
So the
can
IU
read
has,
what it is.
the
but-
IU has a bunch of different STEM, like Ozobots,
Oh, okay,
different things
okay.
that they can lend out to the districts.
Okay.
So I think the gist of it is that you have to request them, and if you damage them or don't return them, you have to pay for it.
Okay, okay. I didn't know if it was that we work alongside with them or it just.
It's like a library of things
Okay.
they have.
Okay, that makes sense then. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Pike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Physical presence for citizen comments, live streaming.
Board is asked to approve the attached resolution discontinuing certain practices adopted during the COVID-19 pandemic. Please, give me 1 second. Computer's running slow. Whereas the Southmoreland School Board is returning to physical presence meeting in June 2021, but has already advertised a means of public participation for the June 24th, 2021 budget public meeting. Whereas obtaining and retaining permanent personnel to perform certain functions for public meetings has been difficult and is still unsuccessful for permanency. Whereas the following resolution will take effect beginning on July 2021 if it is approved by 2/3 vote of the school board. but only if approved by 5 members. Then it will require approval again in subsequent monthly business voting meetings. Be it resolved that pursuant to Board Policy 003 and only for the changes herein, Southmoreland School Board approves suspending the requirement that an adoption, amendment, or repeal of board policy requires that the proposed change in policy be approved at a previous board meeting and remain on the agenda of each succeeding board meeting until finally approved or rejected at a subsequent meeting. Number 2, notwithstanding any previous policy, rule, or resolution to the contrary, effective beginning with public meeting in the month immediately following the final passage of this resolution, the school board hereby eliminates from public physical presence board meetings, A, the participation of the public for public comment by telephone, and B, the live streaming of public meetings on YouTube, but not the subsequent replaying of public meetings on the Scotty channel, which shall continue. Number 3, regardless of whether the COVID-19 pandemic is continuing or any governmental emergency orders in effect for the board, or the board is meeting in physical or virtual presence, nothing herein shall prevent, and the board specifically approves the attendance, A, by invitation, any contractor, advisor to the board, or non-Southmoreland public official to attend by electronic means or telephone to represent their report, and B, without specific advance board approval, the attendance of Southmoreland School District officials, including board members, by electronic or telephonic means. And number 4, the change shall be reflected by the inclusion of Section 2 and 3 above in the Policy Manual 003 and by replacement on the Southmoreland website.
Can I add in that B, I think, is also subsequently replaying the public meeting on the Scotty channel and YouTube? That should be part of the resolution. That's where it was before, I believe. Right?
Yes.
So I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm still a little torn about like taking it off of live. The reason being, like it states, you have a lot of people who are still not comfortable coming in public right now to board meetings, even with a mask on. I think that something like this at least just be extended maybe another month or 2 until we can figure out what's going on with the world, I guess you could say. I think it would leave at least an open possibility for someone who's not comfortable coming in due to whatever, whether it's, I mean, not that we have many people anyways, but, except for Jan, of course. But, I just think at least, give it a little time.
Is there any other discussion? A roll call?
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mrs. O'Rear?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 2 no, 1 absent.
Service agreement with Clelian Heights.
Board is asked to approve the annual service agreement with Clelian Heights for the 2021-2022 school year.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Heather Smith? Yes. Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Rhodes stepped out. Motion carries 6 yes, 1 passed, and 1 absent.
Insurance renewal proposal.
board is asked to approve the insurance renewal proposal from the DeFurio Monziel Insurance Brokers.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, hey. Oh, no, that's all right.
I don't quite understand. Did it go up?
Went
It
down,
went
I
from
believe.
235 to 246?
Yes, it did go up.
It went up, but they cut terrorism. Is the big jump in because of the workers' comp? Is that part of it?
Well, of course, workers' comp, modest increase, let's just round it off, $3,000. The property coverage actually went up more than the workers' comp.
Oh, yeah, it did, went up 5,000.
I would say roughly 5,000. I'm pleased with the proposal because I thought the workers' comp was going to come in closer to $100,000 based on experience. So, and they explained to me why we got the quote that we did. So, that's why you can either leave the money in the budget and know that you're not going to spend it on these various insurance categories, or you could say, well, let's cut the budget by $47,000. So yeah, I budgeted for all this $290,000, spent $243,000, and I agree with the recommendation not to purchase the terrorism coverage.
Did we purchase that last year?
No, we did not. We've cut that out for I think the last couple years, or maybe 3 years. We all started buying it after 9/11. I remember when that first came up, because we were all scared to death, and so how could you not buy it? But the problem with it is to collect on it, something really bad has to happen, and it has to be an act of terrorism declared by the federal government, and that's a domestic individual doing something we might think of as terrorism. Well, it's just a person doing something terrible, but it's not foreign terrorism as they define it.
Well, terrorism is foreign and domestic.
Exactly. So,
Mr. Marnell, when's the last time do we ever price this out, or do we ever get that second?
well, Mr. DeFurio has done that for us.
I don't mean DeFurio, I mean somebody else.
Well, no,
other agencies here that
you have
broker.
to have an insurance broker to shop it out.
Yeah, I mean, have we ever used another brokerage?
Not since I've been here, no.
Oh, yeah?
They have been your broker for years.
Interesting. So we just go with whatever DeFurio Mongiel says.
Well, not like that. No, we have, between ourselves, I've had him go out and look at, like, Ohio Casualty is pretty big in the school market. That was one. And we got prices from them. This coverage, except for workers' comp, and we used to shop that a lot, and we were with the school board's insurance trust. We were with Highmark, their workers' comp program, and then UPMC beat them, and UPMC has been consistently less than the Highmark program, and that's why we've stayed with UPMC. The student accident health insurance, that's placed separately. The rest of this insurance, I still call it the Pennsylvania School Boards Association Insurance Trust. It's actually the CM Regent insurance, and that group, the insurance trust through CM Regent, insures over 400 school entities. So that would be public schools, intermediate units, career technology centers. So they really know the school market. Now, what you're alluding to is, could you shop out any one of these individually? Sure, you could.
We need to do that, yeah. We squabbled over $10,000 for a fax machine, and here we are with $300,000 insurance policies that we have one price on.
What I would suggest is
Yeah, I
that
think we should look at that, I agree.
What I suggest is that you shop insurance brokers, and then let a new insurance broker, if you choose to go that route, shop it for you. Because I found in the winter of the 90-91 school year, my school board wanted the insurance program shopped out. Now, I was young and I didn't know any better, so I put together, with the help of other PASBO and others, and I put together specifications. And I sent out the specifications to every insurance agent and broker that I knew of in the area. Plus, since they wanted it bid, we advertised in the paper. What I found out was very interesting. If Mr. Patonic is an insurance broker, he gets that bid spec, and he likes Ohio Casualty, and he runs to Ohio Casualty and says, okay, I want a quote on this. You're an insurance broker. You get in the door a day after Mr. Patonic does. They won't give you the quote. They'll give it to one broker. And I found that out, and I found that very interesting, and it bothered me. But that's the way the insurance companies work. They will give a quote to one broker or to you individually, but they won't give it, they won't say, okay, we're going to give you.
Was that in 1991 and 92?
Yes, and that's still how it
We're in
works.
2020, 2021 right now, and I go with Jim. I think we need to I'm sorry, Mr. Carson, I think we need to expand our horizons on this.
Why, wouldn't this different brokers be getting the same prices from the same insurance companies?
Well,
And then I just want to remind everybody that this is a local business within Scottsdale that also pays taxes to this district. And before we start shopping for businesses out of the district, I think people just need to keep that.
You won't be able to get insurance quotes individually. You have to go through a broker.
Right. But won't
Okay.
a broker?
And a broker will need a broker letter from the
Can I call for a
entity
vote?
to go to insurance company to get a quote to give you.
Yeah, we're still in discussion.
Is this a broker?
So this is a broker.
Okay.
And he shops around different companies to get this quote. So what my question was just, if you have broker A and you have broker B, and they are both going out for bid, aren't they going to get the same prices for you from? So one broker could get a better price than the other broker.
If a broker gets to, and I'll use Ohio Casualty, if broker A gets to Ohio Casualty first, that's who Ohio Casualty will give the quote to, that broker. Now, if broker B doesn't want to use Ohio Casualty, they could maybe go to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati will give a quote to them. Another broker may choose to go to Unum or may choose to go to Commercial Union, but those companies will not give multiple quotes to different brokers for the same school district. Does that make sense?
It does.
I mean,
Okay.
really,
Okay.
and you have to have a broker do this for you. You can't do it on your own like you can at home. Like you can call several insurance agents, say, I'm shopping my auto policy, my home, let's combine them. It's a whole different
They're
market.
an insurance broker, then what are the insurance companies?
I'm sorry, say
They
again?
issue the
So
policy.
this is an insurance broker.
Right, you're not buying the policies from the Fuhrer Mondial. They're placing it with these insurance companies. They will send us an invoice then that we pay the insurance premium for.
Right, but wouldn't they shop different insurance companies to get us the best rate?
And they
Yes.
do that.
They did. Okay.
Now, you don't do that every year, because when you do that, these insurance companies will say, you know what, you asked for a quote last year, and now you're coming back again. I'm not going to give you a quote. And we've seen that happen. So you have to let the market sort of settle down, and then go back a few years later or so and say, okay, Ohio Casualty, we need a fresh quote from you. And a broker can get a lot of power with that if let's say you do a formal resolution and you give it to them and you say, look, we want you to go out and get quotes. And they can say, yeah, okay, I need a quote. You know, my client is asking this. Give us quotes. And then they will come back and say, okay, CM Region is quoting this. Ohio Casualty is quoting this. Cincinnati is quoting this. And not all insurance companies will want to quote on all these packages. Some of these are very school district specific.
Right, I understand that, but I mean, there's only one option here.
Because that's the best price.
Who
He gave
says
us-
that's the best?
Well, the Berkheimer Monjo would have said that's the best price that they received. Because you only received one offer from them, correct? You don't?
Yes, they put the package together for us.
Okay, but just like Eccles, I mean, they lay 3 options out for us, and we choose which we feel is the best. We choose what we feel is the best.
Well, I don't think it's the same with Eccles because,
Well, I'm not saying it's, I'm just saying like how they laid it out for us. Like there's 3 options. Like I would think that, I mean, wouldn't they want to give you 3 options, or wouldn't they want to give us 3 options for us to make a decision and not push one particular insurance company?
I think this is multiple insurance companies, right?
It just says CM Regent.
There's 2. One is,
UPMC for the workers' comp.
yes. And then we have
Fire,
Regent.
I forget the name of the company for the student accident and health.
That was under CM Regent as well.
Yeah, then CM Regent is the bulk of the package policy.
United States Fire.
United States
Insurance.
Fire Insurance Company, yes.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Pike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Now, I want to take a 5-minute recess to allow for the walk-on items. I need a motion.
Motion.
I need a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
payment.
We got a new
Just have
field
one
for
on the tree in front of
pennies
my
on the
mom's
dollar.
house.
Okay. I need a motion to go back into
Well,
session.
let's put the tennis court on top of that hill.
Yeah.
Put it down there between
All
the
those in
maintenance building and
favor?
Sue's.
Aye.
Maybe a flood will wipe it out.
Okay. Do we have any citizen comments on the walk-on items?
No.
Okay, the first walk-on item, there was a motion to increase the secretary substitute pay to $10. Do I need a motion?
I'll make the motion to increase the pay of the substitute secretaries from $7.25 to $10 an hour.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries, 8 yes, 1 absent.
Our second walk-on item was to hire a custodial supervisor. Need a motion?
I'll make the motion to hire Mark Price.
At what price?
salary.
What salary?
$50,000, and he will be placed into Act 93.
Correct.
Effective July 1st.
Yes, effective July 1st.
Upon the recommendation of the committee and Mr. Mash.
Second. Discussion? Roll call?
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries, 8 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, and then this was tabled earlier, advertised for school police officer.
The board is asked to authorize the administration to advertise for school police officers.
I need a motion.
Officers or officer?
Can we make that plural just in case?
So are we advertising for a full-time or 2 part-times? What are we advertising?
That was you done?
What I would think, according to Mr. Kiefer, I think we need to keep our options open so that we can, as inclusive as possible. So I would say, ideally, if we want to look at maximizing our benefit, part-time, 2 part-times, but if someone's out there for a full-time, I think we should not turn that down either.
Is he here tonight?
No.
No.
He's not.
So
And listed as part-time and full-time officers.
Pardon?
Part-time and full-time officers. So it covers it all, right?
Yeah, whatever we can, whatever the market's going to bear.
Yeah, it doesn't say how many we're going to offer, how many we're going to hire.
So we would be hiring 1 full-time officer or 2 part-time officers, depending.
this is to replace Mr. Price.
Yes.
I'm sorry, no, I should have went directly to the point.
That's okay.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries, 8 yes, 1 absent.
Appointment of new business manager Pam Mondock as board treasurer.
The board is asked to approve Pam Mondock, business manager, as board treasurer.
You also,
Effective July 1st.
you really need to read that formal resolution,
Oh,
that's
wait.
because there's more in it. You have to set a bond. Previously, it was 10,000.
Be it resolved that, number 1, Southmoreland School Board hereby elects the following person to serve as treasurer without additional compensation effective July 1st, 2021 for a period of 1 year. Pamela Mondock, and authorizes, permits, and directs that her official signature be digitized to sign general fund accounts payable and payroll checks, that they manually sign such other instruments and documents as may be necessary to carry out the duties. And number 2, the Board of School Directors of Southmoreland School District hereby sets the amount of, and that needs to be set as bond for the treasurer with the corporate surety rated at least A, condition for the faithful performance of the treasurer's duties as school treasurer before entering upon the duties of the office. The cost of the bond shall be paid by the school district.
I need a motion, and I need the motion to include the amount of the bond, which was previously $10,000. Or is that what you said?
That's what was done last time.
I'll make the motion with $10,000 bond.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Do we have to do this only for a year? You have to,
Yes,
this to be every year?
yes.
Can you explain it, I mean, to me at least, like what we're doing like for 1 year with a $10,000 bond? Like what is that for? Like my...
It's an insurance bond.
Oh,
To insure in case something happens.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Because just,
Her position and Mrs. Tarzan's position has to have an insurance bond and the business manager, correct? Yeah, yes?
No.
okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries, 8 yes, 1 absent.
Summer school program?
Board is asked to approve Zachary Fiscal for the 2021 summer school program. We live at the SES.
Is that a teacher?
Is he,
what capacity?
will be a substitute, is that, or is this
What grade
a
is he?
current teacher?
He is a substitute. He will just be for that summer
That's
program.
you.
what capacity and rate of pay? He's a
That's
teacher?
He'll be the teacher.
Can we include this for everybody? Because I don't know what he's for too. Like if you guys could talk a little bit louder, because I'm not sure what we're hiring him for.
This is for the SES summer programming,
Okay?
the launch pad.
But for what? To do what?
To be one of the in-class teachers.
Okay, so we did not get enough of our own teachers
did.
signed up? Okay.
Long-term,
He's a long,
long-term investment.
teacher. And he's going to,
You're a teacher, that's why we have to approve him.
So this is a temporary position.
Yes. Yeah, it would just be for
Just
that
during the
2
summer.
weeks.
just for that, just for
2
that
weeks
summer
of launch
program.
pad.
Do you have a rate of pay set
So
for
it
it?
should be the same as what the other teachers are being
$35.
paid?
$35.
Is that the $35 per hour?
$35 per hour.
Well, what was Mrs. Tarzan saying? He was a full-time?
Long-term.
A long-term. Okay, like a long-term sub. Okay. So he has a rapport with, I would assume, these
Yeah,
kids.
he's a
These
tried and
children.
true person.
I'm sorry, say it again?
He's been in our district, working within our district.
Okay, great.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Rhodes? Oh,
Yeah.
wait, I don't have a motion or second.
I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries, 8 yes, 1 absent.
Food service substitute?
Board is asked to approve Brittany Hart as a cafeteria substitute.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Wasn't this was on last week's, correct? Like her,
Yes.
it had something, like she was moving to the middle school, correct?
No, that's the next one.
That's the next one. Oh, okay, my bad. Okay,
Well, that was on the discussion
Yeah.
part, and now you're voting on it.
Okay, all right, that makes sense then. Thank you.
Roll call?
Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries. 8 yes, 1 absent.
Food service reassignments.
The board is asked to approve the assignment of Christina Vetland from the high school 3.25 hours to the middle school for a 3.75 hour position and hiring of 2 substitute part-time positions, Vicky Huff, middle school, for 3.5 hours, and Ellen Brandhoover as a cafeteria floater for 3 hours.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Feig?
Yes. Yes, yeah.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries. 8 yes, 1 absent.
Does anybody have anything else before we move into citizens' comments? Citizen comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, all. We had to go back to the budget.
Yes.
Okay, so the one thing that came up tonight was the insurance reduction, $47,231. Is everybody in agreement to reduce the insurance line by $47,231? Yes.
Yes.
How do you want us to do this? Do I need a motion all in total?
Well, let's see if somebody can combine them first.
Okay.
And if you can't, then you'll have to do it individually.
Okay.
Unless you really feel like taking a whole bunch of it.
okay.
No, that's fine.
So we're cutting
So we
things out
could
of it.
cut that.
Okay.
How do we feel about the tennis courts? Do we feel like that's something that's going to get off the ground this year, or do we feel like that would be something in next year's budget? I think Eccles has kind of told us that it probably wouldn't occur during this fiscal year. But what were anybody else's thoughts?
Next year.
Next year's, like 2022, 2023. Okay, so we can take that out. And
Dave?
then,
Did we vote to put these on? Why do we have to vote to take them off?
they're in our budget. They're in the proposed budget.
I think they're in the proposed.
Yes, they are.
They are.
But we voted to put them on?
Yeah. Yeah, they were in all those numbers.
Yes, you wanted estimates in that proposed
We had
final
the
budget.
maximum stuff in there.
Because if you don't have estimates like that in, then it's very tricky to then add to your budget after you've done a
I
proposed
questioned
budget.
that as well before we did that.
It's always
I had a
better to
lengthy
have it in there and then take it
discussion.
out, rather than find out, oh, we have to add it in.
So if it's in there, I mean, could we then get started on it?
We don't have the money to do that. We would have to take that from the fund balance. So, and it's probably not going to be able to get started in this fiscal year according to the architect.
And it's probably going to cost more than $210,000.
Yes. Yeah.
What did you say?
It's probably going to cost more than what we have budgeted.
Much more, yeah.
You have to be real into the timing and stuff.
Yeah, it's the timing as well. Okay, and then the SPC roof, since we are exploring the loan or the bond, whichever would come back, are we in agreement with taking this $350,000 out, showing the $769,000 as expenditure and $769,000 as revenue, correct?
Yes.
So does somebody want to put that, is there anything else that anybody feels needs to come out? That's leaving the paving project in, leaving the sidewalk project in, and leaving the track project in at this point. Does anybody have anything that is not on this list that they may want to see removed from the budget?
Jim asked when the paving project was going to start.
Oh, okay.
I just thought maybe
We don't know. They're
probably not
just,
till after we vote on it.
They have to do the testing
Yes.
first,
Okay.
then put out the specs.
So,
And you're still waiting for some quotes on the sidewalk situation.
It may not happen. It could possibly not happen this year. It could possibly not happen this year.
With the sidewalk repairs?
Right.
I think they'll happen.
I think those can be taken care of. I mean, I'm not a concrete man, but I would say that.
So does somebody have that written down that they can put that all into one motion, or do we need to do them separately?
I'll make a motion to take out the tennis courts and the insurance of $40-some thousand, and the roof, and then adding it to the expenses and revenues.
Okay, so I need
So actually, that 350 is coming out and it's being replaced both by an expenditure of 769
And a revenue.
and a revenue of 769.
Right.
yes. So, and that will take, that'll take $627,231 off of budget.
So what's that make our final numbers?
Let me summarize those tomorrow, and I'll send them out to everybody so that you have updated totals.
Okay.
Okay, and that leaves in the Roughdale proceeds as coming off of either the sidewalks or the sidewalks track
Yes.
and paving projects. And that does leave in the taking the 511,000-ish for the cyber charter schools.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries, 8 yes, 1 absent.
Is there anything else, Mr. Master, that I forgot? Okay, citizens' comments?
None I have.
Do we have to break for 5 minutes to allow them to call in?
We do. So take a 5-minute
Motion
recess. I
to
need
recess for 5 minutes.
I need a second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And the number they can call if they want to call, Mrs. Tarzan?
It is
887-2065.
That's where it came from. I don't know how it ended up on this side. Oh, that's right. I was using it to hold up my picture.
Okay. I need a motion to go back into session.
I'll make the motion.
Need a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Citizens comment?
Mr. Jan Kiefer. Jan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm ready to go.
Go ahead.
628 Homestead Avenue. I have a question on the stifling of the public outreach with the, I'm sorry, I just got doubled over with the time lapse. I need on the discontinuing of the streaming live. There were 60 people watching tonight on a non-agenda item meeting, and if we would have something come up like we started to have at the beginning of this meeting with people concerned about masks, I think that number could triple or quadruple very easily. I just want to know what the cost was. We know what you offered was a pittance to get that done, but what cost would you be willing to pay to have that service be continued? And on the same subject, we still could have opened the comment board, and you still won't tell me why you won't do that, so people could watch and comment, or even comment as they watch the recording. And second question I would like to have not hanging is what happened to last week's ESSER's school health and safety plan. That came up today, and I thought it was going to be on the agenda tonight, and it didn't. So why did that disappear, or was that just discussion for discussion's sake last week? So that ends my comments, and as usual, I don't expect any answers. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I need a second. Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Sitting here.